This is an overview of our discipleship and church planting system. We'll begin with the banner that we use as a map. This banner, which is typically about 70 inches wide, has most of our lessons on it. One of the chief aims of the system was to create something that anyone could use regardless of educational background. For us, this is essential for many unreached groups and areas. The lessons are printed as a card or on paper. This is used for learning the lesson and then teaching it to others. For presentations, some of the lessons are printed on banners or drawn on whiteboards. All the storyboards or images are made to be used in different languages. All of them have a simple animation with audio that can be used to teach or for review. The animation can also be used for presentation purposes, and the audio just simply turned off. The videos are shared on social media formats like WhatsApp, put on DVDs and SD cards, and are uploaded to Vimeo for viewing and download. Every discipleship system is typically unique or customized in some way. This one incorporates pieces of several different systems, but has a few things that are unique to it. One of those is a C2C progression through 4 different tools, beginning with the CrossBox tool that has been around for about 50 years. The CrossBox tool was adapted to a short C2C and used because of the tactile nature of the tool, which helps tremendously in its use. The 2 tools that follow it are a prism and a ball. The prism follows a C2C sacrifice or Qurbani presentation, and the ball follows the format of a classic C2C. The final is a C2T or creation to throne that is printed out on A3 paper, colored, and then covered with sticker book cover or contact paper. Each of them are done as handwork or a craft project, which helps reinforce learning the tools and also creates ownership of the tool. All these are used for sharing and also for basic discipleship. Now we'll take a look at the trainer's guide. The guide is the owner's manual for the program. It is set up to be done over a series of 4 training days. The 4 training days would ideally be done 2 days at a time, with about 2 weeks to a month between each of them. This training is set up to follow the 4 fields tool and a field-by-field progression. Once the initial training is done, it isn't necessary to do training for subsequent or accompanying material unless requested. Now we'll quickly take a look at the inside of the guide, mentioning a few things as we go. The guide begins with a vision lesson and then moves to the discipleship story and then the abiding with God in John 15, 1 through 10. The discipleship story uses the process of in, up, and out, which is a carryover from our legacy program, the Disciple Cycle. This, like the majority of the lessons, focuses on a passage or a story rather than a popcorn method of Bible study. This has been helpful in retaining and applying lessons. As we move through the abiding lesson in John 15, you may notice the abiding man also showing up in the parable of the soils or the parable of the farmer. Here, abiding is used in reference to the 3rd soil type and moving someone from the 3rd type to become a 4th type of soil. One of the leadership and growth keys in the story is focusing on people of the 4th soil type rather than the 2nd or 3rd during discipleship. Next, as we move to the 4 fields, you'll notice pieces of our logo that correspond to each one of the fields. As mentioned, the manual follows a field-by-field approach with the lessons from here. The lessons for the first field are the person of peace, Cornelius or our house or oikos, Zacchaeus and our testimony, and then the repentance story. For us, the repentance lesson is essential because the majority of the unreached people here have no concept of repentance. This is often coupled with the gospel presentation as well. The gospel sharing tools that we have in the trainer's guide are the Romans Road, presented with a bridge in the hand, C2C cross or box, and then the 3 circles. We may train all 3 or possibly just 1 or 2 of these depending on what each group already knows or the needs of the group. People will practice the tools during training before going out to share them with their oikos or community. Moving into the 3rd field, we cover the 3 types of discipleship groups that Jesus had with the 3-12-70 tool. These groups form the pattern and the foundation for growth. The form and function as well as the necessity of each type of group is covered. Also, we look at the common error of attempting to place the function of one of these groups into another. Each of these groups are then covered individually within the guide. The first group that we covered is the group of 12 in the 3/3 lesson. Once the 3/3 is covered, we then practice it during training using some or all the following lessons: the prayer lesson, communion, baptism, reconciliation from the Sermon on the Mount, spiritual warfare, and stewardship. These lessons are also covered in either the Discipleship 1 or 2 books. These are selected for practice and also for leadership development. Moving into the fourth field, we take a look at essential parts of what makes a healthy church with the church mapping tool. We use this tool to identify where work is needed, but also to plan strategically in starting new churches. The lesson that follows takes a quick look at biblical or Christ-like leadership and identifies 3 essential offices or roles in church leadership. The final lesson is the 3/3 meeting format that is for small discipleship groups focusing on accountability and deeper personal relationships. Now we move into the back part of the guide, and you'll see an outline of the materials that we have for basic discipleship and church planning. The first one is actually 2 books. The first book is one that focuses on learning God's story in the Bible. It begins with a simple progression with a short C to C, then the C to T, and finally with 40 chronological Bible stories from the ST for T story set. There's also a separate book with the 30 Acts stories, which is also coupled with a classic C to C presentation as well. Next, we have 2 discipleship books. The first book follows basic lessons and finishes with 3 gospel sharing tools and the creation of the throne. This is very similar to almost every basic discipleship program that is out there. The second book is quite a bit more extensive and covers several subjects ranging from marriage, spiritual warfare, moral issues, prayer, sharing with specific groups, has 2 different C to C presentations in it. And with this book, as with others, the lessons can easily be used back-to-back or supplementally as needed. As we look into the next page, it's a simple outline of what a church planter may use for a worship service, and then following that is a lesson outline the church planter may use to teach during weekly worship as they get started. These lessons follow the ones in discipleship groups to help reinforce what people are learning and applying during Bible study. The material is designed to help a church planter through at least their first year to year and a half of a church plant. Finally, we'll look back at the map again. We use this as a way to see where a group or an individual is or has been and help customize a discipleship path. And then finally, once all this material is completed and we can see growth and leadership development taking place, we will then move someone into a version of the Foundations program.